If you're worried about losing strength during COVID-19, you don't need to worry anymore. And that's because there are 7 strategies that you can implement in your exercise, even if you don't have much equipment, which will allow you to stay strong. And the reason that we have these 7 techniques is because there are a bunch of laws that your body and your muscles have to abide to in terms of how they respond to exercise. And the thing is that these laws are actually blind to whether you're lifting any weight or not. These laws work whether you've got weight on the bar or not. So let's explore these 7 strategies for improving your strength during COVID-19 with no equipment. Our first strategy is eccentrics, and eccentrics are a type of muscle contraction. So if you're lifting a weight, you can have a concentric contraction, which is where your muscle fibers are shortening. You can have an eccentric contraction where your muscle fibers are starting to lengthen. Now, most training that you would do at the gym is going to revolve around a concentric contraction where you're lifting a weight. But what we can actually do is use this slow braking, lowering phase of the movement, this eccentric contraction, to get a whole range of benefits. In fact, a lot of the research is showing that eccentric training is 10% more effective for increasing muscle size and muscle strength than a normal concentric contraction. So this is a great opportunity to slow down some of your movements, slow down the lowering phase, and get all the benefits, if not 10% more, with even less weight. Our second strategy is the use of a paused repetition. And this is where you actually pause at a certain point during a rep to make that rep more difficult. Because of course, it doesn't matter how much weight you're lifting, what matters is how difficult that repetition is to complete. So how do we actually use this? Well, imagine you're doing a squat. Squat down to the bottom, hold it for 4 seconds, and then stand back up. It's going to be harder to stand up than if you were to go straight down and straight back up because our muscles have a bit of elastic energy that they store. They store this potential energy and then they return it as you stand up from the squat. So we can put this into exercises at the end of the eccentric phase. If we're doing a push-up, you can pause for a moment at the bottom before you press back out of it. If you're doing a squat, you can pause at the bottom of the squat and then stand back up. How long should you be pausing for? About 3 to 4 seconds. It's long enough to get rid of that stored elastic energy and ensure that you're creating all of the work that your muscles need to do. Our third strategy is the use of isometric or static holds. And this is as simple as it sounds. You simply hold your body in a still position and you develop some strength there. Now, these are really effective because all the research has told us that you get 15 degrees of strength on each side of a static hold. So if you're holding your elbow, for example, at 90 degrees, you will get strength 15 degrees past that point and 15 degrees before that point. 30 degrees of strength improvement just from a static hold. Now, this is great if you are traditionally quite weak in a certain part of your lift. If you're weak in a deadlift, trying to get the bar off the ground, you can do static holds in this position to improve 30 degrees around that weak point. Now, there are also some really good benefits for your blood pressure. One of the few forms of exercise that's been shown to drop blood pressure in terms of your strength training. Our fourth strategy today is increasing movement speed. So we've talked about slowing your movement down. How can increasing speed improve your strength as well? Well, actually, this is going to improve your power. Your power is your ability not just to lift a heavy weight, but to lift it fast, to do a fast deadlift, to do Olympic lifting, or to do some sort of plyometric or jumping or athletic type movements. So how can we use this and why is this effective? Well, when we're trying to generate power, we're not just trying to move a heavy weight, but we're trying to move that weight fast. If you can lift a weight faster, you'll be able to lift more. So there's a great opportunity here to lift it somewhere between 30 and 65% of your 1 rep max, but to do it quickly. If you do this, when you then go back to the gym and back to your heavy weights, you'll be able to lift more because you'll be more powerful and you can lift faster. Our fifth strategy to improve your strength with little or no equipment is the use of unilateral training. Now, normally if you're doing a bench press, you're using 2 arms. A squat, you're using 2 legs. But what if you were to half the number of limbs that you're using? What if your push-up was single arm? What if a squat became a pistol, a single leg squat? Effectively, what you're doing is halving the number of limbs that you're using and therefore doubling the load that's being faced. If you're doing a single leg squat, you're lifting your entire body weight on one leg instead of 50% of your body weight on each leg. So if you can apply this to movements like pull-ups and rows and squats and push-ups, you're able to get twice the strength benefit for the same amount of work or the same amount of reps. It's a great way to improve the load that you're able to get from your own body. Strategy number 6 is increasing the range of motion of the reps that you're doing. Now, when we're doing strength training, we're effectively trying to do work. And work is not just about how much weight you're moving, but about how far you're moving that weight. And in physics terms, work is force times distance. So by increasing the range of motion, you're increasing the distance that you're moving. Imagine you're doing a strict pull-up, ending with your chin over the bar. What if this strict pull-up were to be a strict chest to bar pull-up? Same rep, same body weight, but because you're moving further and doing more work, you aren't only increasing the work, but also the number of muscle groups which are working, and you're also increasing the difficulty of that movement because you're moving it further. So look at the movements you're doing. Can you squat lower? Can you do your push-ups to a deficit? Can you do handstand push-ups to a deficit? Can you do those pull-ups as chest to bar instead of chin over bar? These strategies will all help to improve your strength with little or no equipment. Our final strategy to improve your strength is increasing the lever length. What does this mean? Well, think about a movement like a deadlift. When you're deadlifting, the bar or the load is very close to what's called the pivot point, and that's your hips. It's that point, that fulcrum that you are levering around. And that's why a deadlift is such a strong movement. However, what if you were to take that deadlift bar and put it on your shoulders as if you were going to do a back squat? Then you do exactly the same movement, but it now becomes a good morning. It's still that hinge at the hip. What you've done is made the lever longer and what's called a moment arm. There's more of a radius between where that load is and the pivot point, or your hip, that you're rotating around. This means that with less weight, you can get the same amount of work done in these muscles. This doesn't just apply to deadlifts and good mornings. You can look at movements like push-ups and dips and pull-ups and modify them for things like planches and front and back levers. Look at something like a ring dip and maybe modify it to become an iron cross or some sort of iron cross. By increasing the lever length, you're making it harder for your body to do work with the same amount of weight, therefore getting more strength benefit with less load added. So there's no need for you to be worried about losing strength during this difficult time. If you can use some of these 7 strategies, or maybe even combine some of these strategies, you're going to get a lot of benefit and a lot of new benefits that you maybe wouldn't get in your normal gym training. And I think you just might be surprised that when you do get back to that heavy barbell, you can actually lift more than you could before you left.